Hi, I'm Michelle Metje, Corey's Network. We're bringing you today a conversation between me and Kevin Boehm, who is the head of the CrimeStoppers in the Kansas City area. The reason why is we want to make sure that everyone that watches our YouTube channel understands what the process is for CrimeStoppers. And of course, the best way for you to get that information is to go to the horse's mouth. So we're going directly to Kevin himself, and we're going to let Kevin kind of tell us what the process is when from the moment somebody's tip comes into the CrimeStoppers website or into your phone, what happens and what ways can people get a hold of you as well?
Sure. Thanks, Shelley. I appreciate you coming by. So I guess I'm the horse.
Yes.
Well, again, appreciate you guys being here, you and Bob both. I really appreciate all the efforts that Corey's Network has done over the last several years. All the work with the victims. You guys are amazing, great grassroots organization, much like CrimeStoppers. The only thing we have on you is about 33 years of experience. So we work hand in hand, and I really do appreciate our relationship. So
I appreciate you being part of Corey's Network too.
Well,
so thank you.
So to answer your question, basically, CrimeStoppers is a completely anonymous reporting system that is a grassroots organization that started back in 1976 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Just a brief history. It started with a robbery homicide at a convenience store. The detective that ended up with the case had no leads. The case had gone cold. He established a dedicated phone line into the Albuquerque Police Department at the time, put up his own money for a reward. They filmed a reenactment at the local media. Within 72 hours, they had both suspects in custody for this particular crime, and that's where it started. The detective had the foresight to take that idea and spread it across the United States. In 1982, the concept of CrimeStoppers came to Kansas City, Missouri, and ever since then we have been housed in the offices of the Crime Commission, and you can see behind me the 4 core programs that the Crime Commission operates, with CrimeStoppers being the oldest and probably the most recognized. So back to the details again. I want to assure everybody that tunes in that I can promise you all the information received by us is completely anonymous. We don't take names, we don't have caller ID, we don't have phone numbers. There is no information contained in our tips that would disclose who our tipsters are. We don't even designate the individuals that contact us as male or female. The tips are completely generic. They refer to the individual providing the information as either the tipster or the caller, and that's it. The only identifying characteristic that we have. It's the tipster or the caller. Now, having said that, you don't necessarily have to call us. You can certainly call us, but we have other modes of contacting us that can be used. We have a free downloadable mobile app that you can go to. It's called P3 Tips. You go download that, you select Missouri and Kansas City CrimeStoppers. That sets your default, and you can report information that way. Or you can go to our website, which is www.kccrimestoppers.com, and submit your information that way.
Can I have a real quick question? You said that there's no caller ID, but with the app and with the website, do you collect any phone number? Do you collect any IP addresses? What do you do?
Great question. So basically, the app just came about a year ago. Now, as you all know out there that are tech savvy, apps have been available for years. Well, CrimeStoppers had to be assured that the information we collected was not being tracked. There's no geocoding, there's no geofencing around any of the information that you provide. That's why it took CrimeStoppers so long to actually develop an app, because we had to guarantee anonymity. If we don't have anonymity, we don't have a program. And that's how serious we take it. So no, we have no way of tracking IP addresses, cell phone numbers, any of that information. In fact, the level of security that we have on the submissions that come in via the app or the website are basically National Security Administration level security. I mean, it's top of the line security. All the information is purged. It's sent through different servers around the country and actually out of the country. There is no way of tracking this information. So when we get it, we get the information, we make sure everything in there is complete and sanitized. If there is anything that somebody submits that might disclose who they are, we redact it before it's ever sent anywhere. So there are no records of that information. All of our documentation is purged every year. So anything that's over a year old is gone and wiped clean. So, I can assure everybody, I've been the coordinator for 10 years now. None of our tips have ever disclosed any individual that submitted information because we don't have it. I could have a defense attorney that requests our information, which we don't readily disclose, but even if they did, there's nothing in there. There is no information that discloses who that person is. So that's how we operate.
So if, per se, someone does get a case that goes forward, will their name be put in any of the evidentiary information?
Absolutely not, because there is no name to put in it. We don't have a name.
So then how do you pay them?
Great question again. So the way we track our tips is through a code number. So our callers call in or submit their information. A code number is generated. That is what the tipster is given. And then from that point on, it's up to them to stay in touch with us. We send the information directly to the investigative element handling the case. And we're a regional program, so we're not part of the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. And we don't just cover Kansas City, Missouri. We cover the greater Kansas City area, both sides of the state line, over 64 different law enforcement agencies, federal, state, and local. So all of those agencies receive our tips, and we act as the middleman between law enforcement and the tipster to keep the tipster out of it, because that's their preference. Now, I will say, in the best case scenario for law enforcement and the detectives working on the case is always to have somebody that wants to be a witness, that wants to come forward, go to court, testify, give a statement. That's always the best. But absent that, and we understand people aren't comfortable talking to the police, people aren't comfortable for whatever reason, maybe they're afraid that there may be some retaliation. In those situations, that's why we exist.
Okay, well, one of the things that when you came in and trained Corey's network, I remember you saying that you have a specific system for how the payouts are actually given to the client. Can you explain how that gets to the tipster?
So very briefly, once our tip is received and the tipster gets a code number, that tip is then sent to the investigators. Depending on the type of investigation, and we take tips on felony crimes only, so unfortunately, now we do get people that'll call us about a car speeding down the street or an illegally parked vehicle, and we do our best to provide them with resources and put them in contact with the appropriate element, but that's not something that we would pay out on or handle that tip. Only felony crimes. Now, felonies can range from homicide to stolen auto to burglary to drug possession to a felony warrant. We handle all of that. So once we take that tip, we send it to the appropriate investigative element. That law enforcement agency does the investigation, and then it's up to them to report back to us. That's the checks and balances we have in place. We don't make any determination on the validity of a tip. It has to come from law enforcement that says yes, an arrest or charges were filed. So once we hear that from law enforcement, we document that in our system, and we wait for that tipster to call back with their code number. They can check on their code at any time, and we have that disposition in there. If they are eligible for a tip, or for a reward, I should say, we do our payouts once a month. Payouts are in cash. Once again, cash is not traceable. We don't pay by check. We don't write your name on a check because, again, we don't have your name. So we pay in cash at different locations around the city. We have no face-to-face contact with our tipsters, and that's how it's done.
Wonderful. Another question came to me. Give me a moment. Of course, it just slipped my mind just like that. When a person comes through, the CrimeStoppers and etc., you say that it goes directly to the police department and etc. Are the police departments held under the same kind of regulations that you are as far as keeping people anonymous?
No, they are not, because they are a government entity. So they have rules of evidence, they have rules of disclosure, all that subject to the proper court processes.
Correct.
Okay, but CrimeStoppers is a 501c3 organization. It is not part of law enforcement, so it doesn't operate under those same rules. And that's why we operate in that middle ground and provide the information to law enforcement. So, again, there's no names in the tip for them to disclose. And the way Crime Stoppers and the legal advisors that advise Crime Stoppers on a national level, all the information received by Crime Stoppers is proprietary to our program. So
Okay.
we have the governing authority over our tips.
Okay. So if by chance a name is brought up during an evidentiary hearing or something, then it would be based off of the police actually providing that information and not from you.
Absolutely correct. There are no names for Crime Stoppers to provide. So if names were to come up, that's investigation outside of what was reported to Crime Stoppers. We
Wonderful.
have no names to report.
Now, I know that when Corey's case came through, at first you offered $1,000, and then shortly after that you brought it up to $2,000, and that was metro-wide, correct?
Correct.
And then shortly after Corey's case was done, and first of all, I want you to know that in working with you, I really appreciated your professionalism, because during the entire time that we were looking for Corey's murderer, every time we brought in a check, or every time we brought in some extra money for the reward, you sent out a press release. And that press release, every time that press release is on the television, the person gets more advertisement, which is what we're trying to do again with Corey's Network, and it helps people to keep the crime in mind. But after Corey passed away, Corey's case was solved, we noticed that there's been some more changes to your payouts. Can you please explain those to us?
Sure. So you brought up a couple good points there. So let me just reiterate that for the public, Crime Stoppers is a partnership between law enforcement, the community, and the media. All three of the components have to work together for us to be successful. You know, we're here to take the anonymous tips and to offer payouts to those people that find motivation in maybe a little bit of money. And I'll be the first one to tell you, you're not going to get necessarily rich off of Crime Stoppers, but we're there if that's part of your motivation. We hope you just do your civic duty and report information regardless. But that's just how we operate. So the media, as you brought up, is a very important component. They publicize our program as much as they can. They also interview me and interview organizations like Corey's Network and other grassroots organizations to inform the public of what's out there that can help them if they encounter a situation like this. And then, of course, we need the community, because they're the ones that provide the information. You know, in Kansas City, Missouri proper, we're authorized statewide by the state to have 1,500 police officers, max. And we're not at that number right now. Even if we were at full staff, 1,500, that's not enough to police a city like Kansas City. We have to have the community to help out. So, back to the question, however. So, where were we going? I'm sorry.
From $1,000 to what you are now.
The process of payouts, yes. So originally, when our program was founded in 1982, $1,000 was the standard payout max for Crime Stoppers programs, basically uniformly around the nation. Crime Stoppers is a 501c3, so we fundraise all of our money, and with very few exceptions, there's no tax dollars involved. I'll get to that in just a second. But in general, Crime Stoppers is not supported by the government in any way. We don't take any tax money, anything like that. It's all fundraised. We have two major fundraisers every year. So until February of 2011, our standard payout was capped at $1,000. In February of that year, our board voted to raise it to up to $2,000, which is where our current maximum reward just through our program stands at, up to $2,000 for any felony crime. It's on a graduating scale. Each case is taken on a case-by-case basis, and it's approved monthly by our board of directors. I present it to our civilian board of directors every month with a recommendation, and they approve that recommendation. Now, in a couple of other circumstances, there is more money out there. One of those situations is, currently with the city of Kansas City, Missouri, they have come forward because of the homicide rate in Kansas City, and to hopefully help out the community and encourage them to report information to help out law enforcement, they've added money to our reward fund. So any homicide specific to Kansas City, Missouri is eligible for up to $10,000 in reward money. $8,000 of that comes from the city, $2,000 of that comes from Crime Stoppers. There's their $10,000.
Awesome.
We also have, which we've operated since the mid-90s, a program we call the Supplemental Reward Program. That is a situation where a family or a business, someone related to a crime that has occurred, can come in and add money to our existing reward. So they would add money. Minimum donation is $500, but that would go into the restricted account for that specific case. It's only paid out in a situation where we receive a tip that leads to an arrest or filing of charges. Whatever the supplemental fund is that has been added is also included in our money, and then we would facilitate the payout. It's a community service in our view of things. It's a way that people can get involved that don't really know what to do, but have the means to add money to the reward. And as you mentioned earlier, anytime there's a reward increase, we go to the media. They do a fantastic job of publicizing the increase, asking the public to come forward with information. And generally, over the history of our program, we've actually seen a higher clearance rate for cases where we do have additional monies involved. Over the history of the program, for just standard tips, we clear those at a rate of about 20%, so about 1 in 5 is eligible for payout. With our supplemental program, it's closer to about 33%, so 1 in 3. So it does show that the money is kind of a motivating factor. So,
well, and what I found is that when I had $5,000, rather than giving you $5,000, if I give you $500, then I got the media, reaction, and that helped my son's face get on the news again over and over. And in our particular case, they did not pay out to us or to a tipster because the young man eventually was caught by the police, was asked by the police about Corey's case, and he went through his gyrations, but basically he's in jail. My point, though, to you, or my question to you, though, is do you think that it's the fact that people are seeing it more often, or do you think it's the money that's actually causing people to actually make a move?
It's a combination of both. It depends on the individual tipster, to be honest with you. And we have no demographic information on them. We can't tell you how many males, how many females have reported tips to us. We have none of that record. We have very good statistics on the successes of our program, but we can't give you that information because we don't have it. So some people are motivated by money, I have no doubt, and that's okay. If they're willing to come forward, provide the important information that's going to clear a crime, we don't mind paying them. That's fine. If they just want to remain anonymous, maybe that's an issue. That's fine as well. We cover that aspect as well. So.
And then another question, what happens to that money that the family's donated after the case has been solved if no one has come forward?
So if the money is not used, is not credited with arrest or filing of charges, and we do not pay it out, those families or the business or whoever made that contribution is eligible to have that money refunded in full to them. We just need writing notice we just need it in writing, just that they're requesting it. But we handle all of that when they come in and sign the contract with us. It's all explained in there. So you're not at any risk of losing any of the money if a tip does not lead to arrest or filing of charges. We'll give it back to you in full.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Bob, did you have any questions?
Let's wrap it up.
I want to thank you very much for doing this with us. Hopefully we're able to help some individuals understand exactly what you do. If anyone has any questions about how the program goes, it's 816-474-TIPS, TIPS. And what are the numbers for that?
8477.
8477, thank you. And then if you have any questions about Corey's network, you're more than welcome to contact us as well. Our number is 816-834-9161. We do have Kevin on our network. That's somebody that we are very proud to have as part of our network, and we support what you do very much. And as time goes by, anything that we can help you with, please let us know, and I'm sure you'll do the same for us. But thank you for watching today, and you have a good day. And please, if you have any questions at all, please always go to the horse's mouth.
Absolutely.
Thank you.